coming back. So something I think about at the beginning of every month is renewing the precepts and just kind of realizing and reminding myself that as we study the Buddhist teachings and we put the teachings into practice, our lives change. And practicing Dhamma principles, like the 3 pillars of the Dhamma, generosity, dana, the 5 precepts, sila, and following the Noble Eightfold Path, bhavana, it brings greater happiness and security into our lives. And we develop the ability to face life's challenges with more skill and patience and endurance. And among the very first teachings that the Buddha offered to his students would provide a foundation for the entirety of the Buddhist training, were the guidelines for harmonious living. And that's the 5 precepts. They fall in the Eightfold Path under right action, right livelihood, right speech. And the Buddha knew that in applying them to our thoughts and our words and actions every day, no matter how challenging they might be, is a definite way to improve our lives by helping to resolve much of the emotional struggle and stress that cloud the mind. And the precepts are integral to the Buddhist path of practice, the Noble Eightfold Path. And it guides the practice of sila, or virtue, alongside the development of the mental discipline of meditation, and includes the clarity of wisdom. Even when we don't feel ready to meditate or take on other aspects of the Buddhist practice, we can begin with precepts and see positive changes in their circumstances and state of mind right away. So choosing to follow the precepts is a decision, it's a commitment to refrain from certain things we know to be harmful to others and to ourselves. And we arouse the energy to undertake this training based on our understanding. And contrary to possible fears that this will be burdensome and difficult, we can often find it to be really just the opposite. The strength and energy of our commitment to the precepts bring a feeling of joy and confidence. We're no longer so carried away by the old habits, no longer continually wavering about actions that we know are unskillful, but still continue to do. And when we consider our thoughts, words, and actions, then every living situation can be a part of the practice. We can be living the practice. And additionally, the precepts are a way of making a safe container for ourselves and others around us to practice in. We're making certain ethical agreements to live in harmony with each other during this time period. The precepts can become alive as we pay attention to them daily. And the first step in the practice is taking refuge in the Buddha. And it can be approached with different levels. We can choose the most meaningful one to our particular temperament. Some might want to take refuge in the historical Gautama Buddha, the human being that attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree 2,600 years ago. And it doesn't mean that we're worshiping the man who became enlightened or setting him up as being higher than ourselves, but bowing and honoring the Buddha nature that already exists within us. I have to be reminded of when the Buddha encountered Mara, which can be viewed as extreme negative mind states. He felt fear, the same painfully constricted throat and chest and belly, the same racing heart that we each experience when our fear strikes our heart. But by willingly meeting fear with his full attention, the Buddha discovered fearlessness, the open, clear awareness that recognizes the arising and passing of fear without either contracting or identifying with it. Taking refuge in the truth of his awakening can inspire us on our own path toward fearlessness. Paying homage can give us the intention of gratitude as we acknowledge where the teachings come from. I'm going to read a little bit out of the Kalama Sutta, where the 5 precepts are embedded. This is the Kalama Sutta 3.65. It's the most misrepresented, I think, of the Buddhist teachings sometimes, where it says, "It is fitting for you to be perplexed, Kalamas." He's talking to this tribe of people in the town. It is fitting for you to be in doubt. They came to him because they keep having these different teachers pass through town. And they came to him wanting to know what path they should follow. Doubt has risen in you, he says, about a perplexing matter. Come, Kalamas, do not go by oral tradition, by lineage of teaching, by hearsay, by a collection of scriptures, by logical reasoning, by interferential reasoning, by the seeming competence of a speaker, or because you think the ascetic is our guru. But when, Kalamas, you know for yourselves, these things are wholesome, these things are blameworthy, interesting word. These things are censured by the wise. These things, if accepted and undertaken, lead to harm and suffering. Then you should abandon them. Many people are enchanted with the Buddha's listing of sources not to trust as guides to behavior and don't look any further, but the important point is to know for ourselves which actions lead to harm and which lead to benefit. It's not the same as saying, do what you like or use your intuition. It's using an evidence-based approach to figuring out how to live for one's own benefit and the benefit of others. He goes on to say, but when you know yourselves, these things are wholesome, these things are blameless, these things are praised by the wise, these things, if accepted and undertaken, lead to welfare and happiness. Then you should live in accordance with them. What do you think, Kalamas, when a person is without greed, without hatred and delusion? Is it for his welfare or for his harm? I'll change the pronouns. For their welfare, Bhante. Is what they say. Then he says again, Kalamas, a person not overcome by greed, hatred, and delusion, whose mind is not obsessed by them, does not destroy life, take what is not given, transgress with another's wife, or speak falsehoods, nor does he encourage others to do likewise. Will that lead to their welfare and happiness for a long time? Yes, Bhante. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. The Buddha points out that it's impossible to consider the results of our or anyone's actions and conclude that it doesn't matter if we lie or steal or cheat or harm living beings. If we observe closely what happens when people treat each other in these ways, we can see that harm and suffering ensue. It certainly is very apparent in this day and age. The most likely way for us to cause grief to others is by not paying attention to what we're doing. We may continue habitual behaviors without considering that we actually have a choice. The practice implied by this sutta is to stop and reflect on potential consequences before we act. Failing that, we can review our actions and their actions and the actual effects on ourselves and others. And then we can resolve to act or not act accordingly. I came upon this article that I really liked, that I thought I would share and sort of read through, because it's a collection by about 5 different teachers. It was written in 2021 on Lion's Roar. So I'm going to find it in my notes and share it on the screen. You don't have to read it. I'll read it out loud, but it's more modern day reflections on the precepts. So here's the first one: don't kill. Jan Willis is talking about this. Jan Willis, on the first precept. She says, I've long considered verse 183 of the Dhammapada to be one of the best and most succinct summations of the Buddha Dharma. That verse says, do no harm. Practice virtue. Discipline the mind. These are the teachings of all the Buddhas. These 3, not causing harm to oneself or others, practicing what is good and wholesome for oneself and others, and disciplining one's mind in order to accomplish the first 2 activities, are Buddhism in a nutshell. Compassion, nonviolence, and non-harm are the heart of the Buddhist practice. It seems fitting, then, that an enumeration of the general ethical guidelines for Buddhist lay followers, the 5 precepts or 5 trainings, begins with an injunction to refrain from causing harm, killing, or taking life. It might seem that undertaking a vow not to kill would be easy for most of us, but this is not the case. In many ways, it's the hardest of all the precepts. In Buddhism, actions, karma, are of 3 sorts. They're committed by our body, speech, or mind. In order to think and act virtuously, our mind is key. Our motivations and our physical actions begin in the mind, and the mind's actions are much faster than the body's. Say we get angry with someone. We might become so furious that we want to harm them. Now, if we were to pick up a knife or a gun, find that person and aim the gun, or figure out a way to get close enough to use our knife to stab them, well, that would take some time. But in a flash, in our mind, we may have killed that person 100 times over. Owing to our motivation, having thought violence is as much a violation of the precept against killing as having done it physically. The incredible speed of the mind is why it's so important to discipline our mind. If we can restrain our mind, we can cause less harm and perform more actions that are beneficial for all concerned. Shantideva warns in The Way of the Bodhisattva that without disciplined mental restraint, without patience, our anger can destroy in an instant all the virtuous activity we have performed in 1,000 eons. That's heavy duty. 1,000 eons. So I guess we really need to develop patience. Why? Because anger, unlike righteous indignation, is simply frustration, or simple frustration, wishes only to cause harm to another. It's solely a destructive force. Therefore, to undertake the practice of the first precept is to step upon the Buddhist path in earnest. So there's a lot of distinctions between, what anger is like. Is it frustration? Is it agitation? Is it righteous indignation? Is it heavy-duty anger? So let's go on to number 2, don't steal. This is written by Rebecca Lee on the second precept. Precepts are often viewed as restrictions on our freedom. In reality, they are our best friends in the practice of cultivating wisdom and compassion. The second Buddhist precept is to not steal. As we live in a world that celebrates wealth and fame, it's easy to be tempted by shortcuts to success, acceptance, or recognition. Sometimes these shortcuts involve taking what is not given, stealing. Blinded by our greed for acknowledgement and achievement and all that comes with it, we convince ourselves that these shortcuts are okay. The precepts acts as a friend who asks, "Are you sure you want to do that? What about the precept of not stealing?" This gentle reminder provides an opportunity to cultivate clear awareness of our craving and greed, to stop the mental agitation arising from convincing ourselves that we're not harming anyone or that the end justifies the means, and to end the suffering caused by erroneous views. We can choose not to suffer ourselves by letting go of craving, and that choice reflects wisdom. Likewise, we choose to refrain from harming others by not stealing, and that choice reflects compassion. Contemporary life provides numerous opportunities to practice upholding the second precept. When we take money and material things, we can readily recognize this is a form of stealing. But what about presenting someone else's work, knowledge, or idea as if it were your own in order to appear more intelligent and productive? This can be a tempting shortcut to gain influence and achieve success. We try to convince ourselves that no one is getting hurt when we take undue credit. But is that really true? It can help someone's career when they are recognized for their intelligence or contributions. By taking credit for another's work, we're stealing that from them. We may convince ourselves the person doesn't mind because they're not complaining. Yet our actions put them in an untenable position. By complaining, they risk being seen as petty, especially if they are members of a less powerful group, women or minorities, or in a subordinate position, such as a student or employee. As a result, they are hurt twice, first by losing the recognition due to them, and second by being silenced or misunderstood if they stand up for themselves. Not stealing is in accordance with wisdom and compassion. Properly acknowledging other people's work is compassionate behavior because it makes them feel appreciated and seen. Recognizing that our accomplishments are the coming together of many causes and conditions, including work done by others, is wisdom. In this subtle way, upholding the precept of not stealing frees us all from suffering. I come upon this quite a bit when I create Dharma talks. which is why I try wholeheartedly to always give credit to wherever I get my information. I don't want to take someone else's information without giving them due credit, which is probably why some of my Dharma talks are filled with maybe some boring details of who I'm attributing it to, but it's important. It's important. So then we have the third one. Don't stereotype, exploit, or harm others sexually. This is Trudy Goodman on the third precept. Many years ago, during a 3-month meditation retreat, a visiting Burmese meditation master was asked a question about sex. As a monk, he responded, "Sex is gross, base, and disgusting." The Buddha was clear that while sexuality is an enjoyment for married householders, the rules are different for monastics who take a vow of celibacy. During Dharma Follies, there are these funny skits that were performed at the end of the retreat. The monk's answer was humorously adapted for lay people. Sex is engrossing, basic, and worth discussing. That's pretty good. Very different. Good for lay people. Yes, sex can be a delightful way to get to know yourself and others, knowing and being known, loving and being loved. Most people long for this. The third precept extends the overarching principle of integrity and non-harming to the powerful energies of sex. The precept for lay people is a vow not to engage in sexual misconduct. But unlike the precepts against killing or stealing, it's not so clear exactly what constitutes sexual misconduct. I know that when I'm in integrity, with my wholeness, there's respect for my body and yours, even in the force field of sexual desire. If I view people as sex objects or through gender stereotypes, I've fallen into disrespectful dualism that dims the light of awareness. Objectively, or objectifying or othering each other opens a door to exploitive behavior and abuse. Exploiting anyone's vulnerability in sex for my own pleasure takes me far away from my true nature. For whenever I harm another, knowingly or unknowingly, I'm harming myself. Without mindful awareness, it's easy to rationalize and indulge in sexual behaviors I know to be harmful by pretending they aren't really so bad, or by deciding it's okay this one time. When we start going down this path, it's time to take a moment to check in, to breathe deeply, and call in some loving awareness. Pause and ask yourself, is it wise to take the next step? Sex is a big deal. How much time do you spend wanting, wondering, fantasizing, even obsessing about it? It takes willingness and courage to move past fear of the unknown, fear of being known, painful or traumatic sexual experiences, and cultural sexual inhibitions to explore this territory. It takes practice to handle the heat of erotic fire skillfully. For me, learning to navigate sexual relationships wisely has been the work of a lifetime, full of joys and sorrows. When I enjoy the pleasure and happiness of my sexual partner, as well as my own, that joy aligns with my Buddha nature. And it's sexy. All the factors of awakening, joy, energy, interest, mindfulness, relaxation, concentration, spaciousness, come into play in the intense space of sexual connection. Shifting from having sex to being inside the sexual experience, either by myself or with another, is powerful intimacy. In Zen, it is said that true love is when the division between self and other disappears. We find that passionate, heart-opening presence when the third precept is kept with love and care. The fourth precept, Tell the truth. THANISSARO BHIKKHU is writing this on the fourth precept. The very first Dharma lesson the Buddha gave to his son was never to tell a deliberate lie, even in jest. In another context, he added that if a person feels no shame telling a deliberate lie, there's no evil that person will not do. Obviously, the Buddha saw the precept against lying as crucial to goodness of any sort. He defined telling a lie as deliberately misrepresenting the truth. You did X, but you say that you didn't. You didn't see Y, but you say that you did. Many people, when they learn of this definition, immediately look for two possible exceptions. What about jokes where you exaggerate the truth, but without intending to deceive your listener? What about lies told with compassionate motives, such as wanting to protect people from truths they're not ready to hear, or to protect people from danger? The Buddha's first lesson to his son explicitly rules out the first exception. The teaching he gave after that lesson helps explain why. The practice of training the mind is a matter of becoming increasingly sensitive to your actions in thought, word, and deed, to the intentions motivating them, and to the results they yield. If you see anything unskillful in your actions, you do your best to abandon it. This practice requires not only sensitivity, but also rigorous honesty. If you're careless in how you frame your words to others, it's easy to be careless in how you view your intentions and the results of what you've done. You keep turning a blind eye to currents in the mind you'd rather not see. To counteract this tendency, you have to be rigorously true in everything you say, even when looking for ways to express your sense of humor. Try to find it in the truth. There's plenty of it there. A similar line of reasoning applies to the second exception. It's all too easy to justify breaking a precept by citing compassionate motives. But your self-professed compassion may be hiding other motives that are more self-serving. The mind is notorious for lying to itself about what its genuine motives are. There are also social consequences to white lies. When people find out that you've told them a lie, no matter how compassionate you thought it was, they'll never really trust your words again. When trust is broken, the relationship is wounded. And when little lies become acceptable, bigger ones become more widely acceptable too, and society as a whole breaks down. We're certainly seeing that happen. When you want to avoid sensitive topics, learn how to be quick-witted in getting around them without misrepresenting the facts. It's a better exercise for your discernment, to stick with the precepts in a harmless way than to justify breaking them. Now we come upon the last one. Don't consume toxins. This is from Sister True Dedication. She's part of Thich Nhat Hanh's Sangha. The 5 mindfulness trainings are Thich Nhat Hanh's unique modern take on the 5 traditional Buddhist precepts. They are a journey of training in right action, the kind of action that responds to the suffering of our times. Thai, as he's known to his students, has expanded the 5th precept, which is traditionally understood as refraining from drinking alcohol and taking drugs, into a deep training in mindful consuming. The 5th mindfulness training zeroes in on the hundreds of choices we make every day about what to eat, drink, and watch, or listen to. It also includes the kind of environment we choose to immerse ourselves in, and the kind of dreams and intentions we nurture to draw us forward through life. All of these can be considered as nutriments for body and mind. They can be healthy and they can be toxic. The fifth mindfulness training is about actively seeking out those things that are healthy for our body and mind and consciously avoiding what is toxic. In Buddhism, there is such a thing as free will. Mindfulness sets us free to choose in any given moment what we eat and drink, what we see on our screens, and what kind of life ultimately we want to live. We get to choose what to do with our minutes, hours, and days. We get to choose how to handle what's arising in our body and mind. Mindfulness also leads us to a deeper, radical honesty about the effects of every kind of input on our body, mind, and spirit, and on the planet. Does what we are watching, reading, listening to, and consuming help all of us be healthy, happy, and whole? Mindfulness allows us to ask why we're reaching out so much to consume, to open the fridge, switch on a streaming channel, or pick up our phone. It's only human to cover up painful feelings of loneliness, fear, and despair with a bit of distraction and stimulation. But as practitioners, we know that covering up our suffering with consumption may only make the situation worse. When we do that, we lose the chance to take care of the feelings that are there. And we may introduce even more negativity into our lives. Consuming mindfully is an art, not a strict regimen. It's up to each one of us to discern what's healthy and what's not. Guided by our own insight of interbeing and compassion, for each person it's different. There's no hard and fast rules for mindful consuming. It's up to us to identify with the energy of mindfulness, whether what we're consuming feeds our compassion, hope, and action, or whether it waters seeds of fear and despair. Each of us has to come up with our own strategy to take our consuming in a better direction. Thich Nhat Hanh emphasizes insight into what he calls interbeing, the profound interconnection of all that is. In this light, you cannot separate the glass of liquor in your hand from the grains that could have fed a hungry migrant, or the communities and families that are destroyed by addiction. We cannot separate the balance. We cannot separate the violence on our screens, which waters seeds of fear and violence in our body and minds, from the violence that plays out on the streets. Our body is also the body of the earth, the body of society, and we want to take care of it with love and respect, just like we want to take care of our planet and fellow citizens with love and respect. This empowering insight transforms our simple everyday choices into a dynamic realm of meaningful action. I know that's a lot of words from that article, but some of them are pretty interesting. And I think I would like us to take some time talking about them, but first, I would like us to go ahead and remind ourselves of the precepts. And there's a couple of different ways we could do it, with the Pali and the English and the traditional way. There's also the 5 precepts that have like a more, the precepts, are seen as restraint. They're seen as, that's why they appear to be negative. I refrain from harming others. I refrain from taking what isn't offered. Other people have modernized them more into making something positive out of it. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking the life of any living being. And then I aspire to become kind and of service to all beings. And it's important to remember that when the Buddha taught these, and here it is in Pali, it was as an act of restraining ourselves, of renunciation. So I'd like to do it both ways. If you want to go along with it, let's say the Pali. We'll do the refuges and then the precepts, and we'll say the Pali, and then we'll go to the next one, and then I'll have each of you take turns and read the English underneath it. So let's start up here by just doing the Pali. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Okay, I'm going to go on with the refuges. I can't skip the refuges. Buddhang saranam gacchami, danang saranam gacchami, sanghang saranam gacchami, dutiyampi buddhang saranam gacchami, dutiyampi danang saranam gacchami, dutiyampi sanghang saranam gacchami. Tatyampi buddhang saranam gacchami, tatyampi danang saranam gacchami, tatyampi sanghang saranam gacchami, panatipata vairamani sikapadang samadhiyami, adina dana vairamani sikapadang samadhiyami, Kamesu michacharya vairamani sikapadang samadhiyami, musawada vairamani sikapadang samadhiyami, surya marya majapamadatana vairamani sikapadang samadhiyami, idang me silang palanyana. Oops, let me see, I lost my place. Idam me silang maga palanyana sa pachayo hotu. Thank you for doing that. Now let's go into this version, and I'll do the Pali line, and then let's see, I think I have you all in the same order on the screen. Oh, but I can't tell what that is. So let's just take turns having somebody read the A and the B. So you'll have to just be on your own to unmute and read it. So here I go with the Pali. Panatipata vairamani sikapadang samadhiyami. Okay, somebody read it.
I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking the life of any living being.
Go ahead and read the next line too.
I aspire to become kind and of service to all beings.
Adina dana vairamani sikapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking that which is not really given. I aspire to become generous to all beings.
Kamesu michacharya vairamani sikapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the rule of training to refrain from sexual acts which cause harm. I aspire to nurture love, relationship, and beauty.
Musawada Vairamani Sikapadang Samadhiyami.
I undertake the rule of training to refrain from false and harmful speech. I aspire to use speech to create happiness, harmony, and understanding.
Surya Marya Maja Pamaratana Vairamani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. Carol or Ed, do you want to read?
I understand the rule of training to refrain from the use of the tongue. I aspire to cultivate mindfulness.
Thank you very, very much. May these precepts find a way into your heart that you can use on a daily basis, sometimes just choosing one or having some of these words flow into your mind when you find yourself having negative thinking, of just going back to undertaking one of the rules of training and realizing the safety that is in it for us as practitioners. So thank you very much for going through this process with me, and let's have a little conversation about it. We have about 10 minutes to really go over some of the nuts and bolts or have some reflection.